Happy Tuesday, all you minties! This is the Uncanny Omar from Near Mint Condition, the home of collected editions. And join me today for your advanced look at these trades coming out from Marvel Comics this week. So, let's go ahead and get started. Before going any further, I do want to thank the folks at Marvel for sending us advanced copies of these books. All of these books are due out in the direct market and book market on February 28th or March 1st, depending on where you get your books. So not a lot of trades today, but we do have two Omnis. We had Guardians of the Galaxy come out, as well as the Immortal Iron Fist. But we have 4 trades. We've got 3 brand new stories, and one that, well, I guess not brand new if you're reading them every month. And then one collection from the 90s to kind of cap out that particular era of the X-Men animated series. So I always leave timestamps in the description of the video if you just want to jump around down there to make sure you're not being spoiled on a particular book, or if you're not interested in one book and you want to know about another. So timestamps are in the description of the video. Don't forget to smash that like button, please. That goes a long way for the channel. It's a very small thing you can do to help us out. So, let's go ahead and get started. Let's talk about Defenders Beyond. Defenders Beyond. This is the follow-up to last year's book, The Defenders There Are No Rules. Beyond was a miniseries that came out in 2022, and it was a 5-issue miniseries. All 5 issues are collected here. This is really cool. I wish they had done one of those little landscape covers here with a widescreen, just to have both the classic Defenders and then these Defenders known as the Beyond team. Now, I'm not going to spoil what happened in this book, but based on that cover, you can probably tell that, hey, where are all the characters? Where's Silver Surfer? Where's Doctor Strange? Now, Doctor Strange does play a part in this, but I would strongly suggest reading the current Doctor Strange series, or at least knowing a little bit about it before reading this as to what's happened to Dr. Stephen Strange, because it kind of spoils something that's happened to him that's kind of taken him out of commission from this particular adventure. This is printed in the US, by the way, so you have this flat finish instead of a glossy finish like you're used to from books that are printed in Canada. This book retails for $15.99, and it has 128 pages. Now, the creators here are Al Ewing and Javier Rodriguez, the same 2 creators that brought this series, which was freaking excellent. And when I clicked this open, I was a little confused because I was like, did Javier Rodriguez change his art style? This looks like Lee Garbett, and it is. It's Lee Garbett, so it's a small part of the Loki Agent of Asgard. What comes next? It's from the prologue to Thor 24. So it's that era of Agent of Asgard where he meets up with this particular character from the previous Al Ewing Defender series, and that is Taya. Now, I strongly recommend, if you're going to read anything, to read that book, that trade paperback, because here it kind of spoils what her big role is. So this is all part of that Thor issue, and Loki forever changing. By the time he joins the Defenders, he's a little bit different. Now we get this particular team up. So, actually, I think the first issue is called Am I Having a Team Up? Or maybe that's just what one of the characters says. But here we see this particular character, Dr. Adam Brashear, and Al Ewing is no stranger to writing that character. If you've read the Ultimates, which everybody should, his Ultimates is so good. And this is the Blue Marvel. It's a character that's kind of shoehorned into the Marvel Universe that haven't existed for a long time. He's just kind of kept quiet to himself. But he's not alone. He's joined by his other team member, and that is America Chavez. So he's visited by Doctor Strange. Doctor Strange leaves him this obscure message that he needs to go on a mission, that he needs to assemble a team of defenders. And this magic is going to bring him a box, and it will contain a helmet, or this strange mask. The Infinity Mask is what it's called. Or no, the Eternity Mask, not the Infinity Mask. That would be a completely different story. So the Eternity Mask is going to be kind of like your MacGuffin in here. So This is when America Chavez comes in. And if you know anything about the Blue Marble, you know that he doesn't really believe in magic. He's a man of science. He's a man of seeing the things that are in front of his face. And he's a little questionable of what Doctor Strange told him, especially the way that he told him. And then comes in Loki with Taya. So now he's starting to see that this prophecy of forming these new defenders to go on this secret mission is about. So there is one more character that ends up joining their team, or at least for now, and that is Tigra. And the prophecy foretold, the tarot cards foretold that Tigra would be joining them. Now that the team is all together, this spell teleports them into the unknown. And this is really where the adventure begins. This is where I can't spoil the last page of this issue, but it had me in the same way that Annihilation had me, with a smack to the face. Why didn't I see that coming? And if you've read this, you know what I'm talking about. I was so happy. I don't know if that character... Now, I'm not going to spoil if the character that shows up is going to join the team, or if this character is the antagonist of the story, but it was just a surprise, even though it shouldn't have been, to see this character show up. But this is what Rodriguez's artwork looks like. And I'm jumping around a little bit because there are a couple of surprises in here. So, why was this spell by Doctor Strange made? Why was this spell to assemble a team of defenders made? And you get to find out through each issue the importance of these characters, why these characters were chosen. And my goodness, just the way that Al Ewing writes these characters, it makes me wish that this was an ongoing series. It makes me wish for a Defenders ongoing with these characters. And I would throw in the Red Harpy in there, of course, Silver Surfer, Doctor Strange, just to kind of fill that classic roles. Well, not really the Red Harpy, of course, but definitely Silver Surfer and Doctor Strange in this new team of Defenders. Oh my gosh, it was such a treat to read this particular miniseries. If you're a fan at all of Al Ewing and what he's done in the Marvel Universe, whether it was Guardians of the Galaxy, Immortal Hulk, there's a lot of payoffs in here from his stories that he started writing about 10 or so years ago. Whether it was the Ultimates or the Avengers series that he was writing, there's quite a bit of payoff in here that he was building up for. So, hope one day that this stuff gets collected in a big format. Here, let's look at... Oh, I can't even look at the extras because all it is just additional reading. It's suggested reading by Al Ewing to fully enjoy this, to fully enjoy the plot twists and turns. I don't think 100% you would have to follow that list. I think you would have to have an understanding a little bit as to the things that came before here, just in that Defender series. But if you had been reading a lot of these stories for years, it's not just his stories, it's a lot of stories that Marvel has set up for years. There's a lot of cool payoffs in here, in introducing elements, or reintroducing elements, rather, that haven't been really touched upon for a number of years by writers. This book has 128 pages, and it retails for $15.99. Eternals, a history written in blood. Now, I just mentioned how you had to do some required reading to fully enjoy the Defenders Beyond series. This also requires some reading. But really, the reading that you need in here are these two books, and that is Eternals Volume 1, Only Death is Eternal, and 2, Hell, Thanos. And these are both written by Kieran Gillen, who's the series writer, and of course the big mastermind behind the Axe Judgment Day, the big crossover. The question is, though, when to best read these, because I feel like the stories, at least a couple of the one-shots in here, could have been read between volumes 1 and 2 of Eternals, whereas the Heretic story, that one probably could have been read during the Axe Judgment Day. So, to play it safe, definitely after reading both volumes of Eternals, come back and read this. So this collects Eternals Thanos Rising, it collects Eternals Celestia, and the Heretic, Eternals one-shot. It also has a commentary, a really cool commentary by Kieran Gillen about the material that's collected in the back, and that is the stories from What If, the original What If series from the 70s, 24 through 28. And why they're collected in here are very important to his big master plan that he's had for the Eternals. Holy crap, Dustin Weaver, by the way, drawing this with some Kirby Crackle and some Kirby designed Eternals look right there. Oh my gosh, it's so awesome. I've always been a big fan of his art, but just to see him channeling Jack Kirby, and oh my gosh, you get some Dino Riders vibe right there. But what I was going to say is that even though the story is called Thanos Rises, don't expect a lot of Thanos. As a matter of fact, don't expect any Thanos, even though he's on the cover. This is more of a story about a war between Alar and Zuras. And Alar is the character that most people probably are familiar with him if you've read Eternals, as the character of Mentor. Now, you can probably tell here, this took place 200 million years ago, when it was a quiet time. Except when it wasn't. So you'll see a lot of familiar characters that have appeared through the pages of Eternals. I would not recommend reading this if you are not familiar with any Eternal stuff. This should not be your first Eternals book, because you're going to be confused, even though it's a couple of origin stories in here. Even if you're vaguely familiar with the character of Thanos, I still don't recommend this, because that kind of spoils a little bit of Thanos' plan in the Eternals books. So this, again, you're going to see some characters from the Eternals, and they're going to look like their classic look before the makeover in the recent run. And the makeover, I'm sure, was partly due, or maybe mostly due, to the fact that the Eternals movies came out, or the movie came out. Oh man, has it been 2 years now? I guess 2021. So they had to change the characters to make them look like their movie counterparts. But here you'll have the classic Kirby design to the characters. So again, it's a war between Alar, who will later be known as Mentor, and Zuras. And the war is over something pretty simple, or at least that most people take for granted, and that is procreation. Zuras thought the Eternals shouldn't be able to breed, instead just going by their familiar system that they've been using for years, because they've been around, of course, hundreds, thousands of years. So why change things up? And that is, of course, using a machine to do that. And, of course, Alar believes in the opposite, doing it the more traditional way, if you will. That leads into a huge battle that actually has repercussions in the Eternal series. Now, the next story is the Celestia story. And this one, oh my gosh, this right here has some gorgeous artwork. It kind of reminds me of a European comic. This is also another one-shot, and this features the characters of Ajax and Makari. Now, again, I think you would benefit from having read the Eternals trade paperbacks, and then coming back to this and reading it. So, this is all about the Eternal City of Celestia, which is this big house that they built the Celestials when they come to Earth. And then that's kind of where they center their faith around. And this is all about faith and lack of faith and starting to lose faith. And during the big Acts series, you're going to see appearances here by the Avengers. What is this? The 1 million BC Avengers? Which, oh my gosh, that retcon. That takes place during Jason Aaron's run of Avengers. So basically featuring these characters, it takes place in the past. There's a lot of flashbacks. And then in the present time. And then the third story is The Heretic. And this is here to just kind of give you a catch-up, or I guess a little bit of a recap as to who the character of Uranos is, who plays a big part in the Judgment Day. And this is practically a conversation between Uranos and Thanos. And gives you a little bit of background between Uranos and Druig and Druig's people. It really is an interesting story, especially if you've read the Judgment Day, to kind of get a little bit of an understanding of Uranos. Now, if you're coming from the old school Jack Kirby Eternals, this is going to look different to you. He's been changed a little bit, because this is, of course, the Rebirth and Eternals change. Now, all the way in the back is where you're going to find the What If backup stories featuring the Eternals. And before each story, there's a little note from Kieran Gillen explaining why these stories were kind of collected back here and why they serve the purpose of his story that he's telling. So I like that. In here, you're going to see what Uranos looked like. Actually, there he is right there. And what ended up happening to him, and Kronos, and all the different Eternals during this particular time. And in the back, you're going to see some variant covers. Now, these were previously collected before in the Eternals Omnibus And I believe, yeah, they were part of the What If omnibus. And yes, variant covers all the way in the back. Now, this book has 112 pages and retails for $15.99. And you can probably tell as I was flipping through here, this has a lot of dialogue and a lot of narration telling you the history of the Eternals. So if you're not a fan of that, if you're thinking that this is more like a modern comic with lack of narration boxes and minimal dialogue and it's all this pictures telling the story, this might not be for you. This really does read like a Gillen book. I love it. That's why this one is getting my stamp of approval for this week. I thought this was such a great addition to the Eternals book, and I hope that we get some kind of omnibus or oversized hardcover treatment of these stories one day, because the art is beautiful and the story is great. And yeah, made me interested in the Eternals. Not even Neil Gaiman could do that. Spine watching time. Always think of Cops, that animated show, crime fighting time. Anybody ever get that reference or know what the hell I'm ever talking about? All right. I thought I was alone. But here's all the spines of the books coming out this week. And also a reminder to hit that like button, subscribe, and ring that bell for notifications. All right. Let's continue on this journey. X-Men by Gerry Duggan, Volume 3. And we are way beyond the Trials of X. So if you're getting the anthology series, this might be a while before it catches up to where we are here. Because this collects X-Men 13 through 18. And I just spoke of Eternals, and I've mentioned the Day of Judgment, or Judgment Day crossover with the Avengers and the Eternals. And this also has a couple of issues that cross over there. And printed in America, so it's got this flat finish to it right here, thicker glossy paper. Gerry Duggan, Steve Fox, CF Villa, and Andre DeVito are some of the artists working on this book. So this continues the story of Gerry Duggan's run on X-Men. And there are things that are going to be spoiled for you if you're reading this before you read Judgment Day, especially the Cyclops issue. So I would strongly suggest reading Judgment Day before reading this. Of course, if you don't care about spoilers, then it doesn't matter, right? You're going to read this and you're like, I'll check out Judgment Day one day. This doesn't really go into heavy spoilers as to what the outcome of Judgment Day is, but it does kind of give you an idea of what the premise is and who is siding with who, and what the big role of that big Celestial over at Avengers Tower, or the Avengers Mountain, rather, is, and what he's going to play. Now we have Firestar. Do you know how happy I am to see Firestar as a member of the Avengers? The Avengers. She's been a member of the Avengers. She's been a member of the New Warriors, but now she's a member of the X-Men. Voted by you all. By the way, one thing I forgot to mention is this not only includes 13 through 18, but I didn't see anywhere that it's solicited. But it also includes X-Men Annual Number 1, which features Firestar quite a bit. It's almost like a team-up of Spider-Man and his amazing friends, except it's not Peter Parker. This is actually it right here. It's another Spider-Man, and of course the Hellions are going to be there giving her crap because she used to be one of them, and she didn't have the same outcome that they did during that big, the Upstart game. But it focuses heavy on her. I love that. And like I said, there's a team up, or a little bit of a team up between Iceman, Firestar, and a Spider-Man. Forge is back, baby. And I'm sure you've probably seen, I think it was in the solicit, he's wearing this Caliban outfit. Now, these are some of my favorite stories, The Mutant We Left Behind. I like these stories. It's where he has to go back to the Children of the Vault, that area. And he has to go and rescue one member. And what he comes back with is a big surprise. And I actually like that outcome because it took me by surprise. I was like, oh, that makes sense. I'm so glad. But wait, what does that mean for this character that's hanging out with the X-Men now? As much as I like this, I still give it to Eternals as my stamp or seal of approval for this week. I am more excited about what's coming next because the cliffhanger of this final issue in here has one page that I was so happy to see. Because I love these characters, and it's been a while since we've seen them, so I want to see how the current era of X-Men handle these characters. And just to kind of give you an idea how these are collected, you get the cover, but it's like this red tone cover. almost like you're looking at it through Cyclops' visor. But all the way in the back are where you're going to find the actual textless covers with no Cyclops looking through them. Russell Dodderman's trading card variants are so freaking awesome. I wish they would actually publish them in trading card size. I'd buy them all over again. Of course, based on the X-Men trading cards by Jim Lee. Beautiful piece there by Arthur Adams. So, man, people really like Firestar's new costume. It's okay. Kind of wish they'd given her the classic. I like the New Warriors designed by Derek Robertson. Not her original yellow one, but the one where she wore the red and gray jacket. I like that one. This book has 208 pages and retails for $19.99. Last but not least is X-Men, the animated series. That's what this one is called. The Further Adventures. You have Beast right there. I believe that's a piece by Ben Herrera. And then this back right there. Animated style adventures from one of the X-Men's greatest eras. And the ISBN, $39.99. Now, one thing to make clear is that the stories in here are not collected in the omnibus. These, I think I talked about that when I looked at the omnibus. These take place after this omnibus. This would be like season maybe 5.5, I guess, because a lot of the stories in here are original for the magazine and the Adventures of X-Men. So while these were called the X-Men Adventures, or the animated series Adventures, I guess, this is the Adventures of X-Men. All right, so what are we looking at here? Here's your table of contents. This collects part of, or I guess material of Spider-Man magazine 1 through 13, which also featured the X-Men. Now, the X-Men were featured in about 5 to 6 pages sometimes less, sometimes a little more. And it also collects Adventures of the X-Men 1 through 12, Adventures of Spider-Man 3, because that's the crossover, and then Spider-Man Magazine Special 1 and 2. And each story, at the beginning at least, focuses on Jubilee's take on the X-Men, like her experience with the X-Men. You also have stories in here that feature the return of some of the characters. Now, these were not animated. These were not original adaptations of the animated series. These are original stories from the animated universe. So to kind of simplify it, these are not canon. These aren't the X-Men of the 616 universe. The stories in here don't affect the stories in current X-Men series or have anything to do with Jim Lee's X-Men or Chris Claremont's X-Men. They are set in that animated universe, if you will, which I guess they share with Spider-Man. So, like I mentioned, a lot of Jubilee's stories are collected in the Spider-Man magazine or told through her perspective. There's one in particular I want to talk about for a couple of reasons, and that's this one here. This is the Wolverine and Jubilee, Dear Mom and Dad. It's a story by Kelly Kerves, but the artwork here is by Don Heck. Now, I want to say that is the Don Heck from the Atlas era of Marvel, all the way from the 50s. The gentleman that took over Avengers, drew Iron Man in the Silver Age. I remember when I came back to comics, I would join forums, and people would make fun of this panel right here. They were like, that's not how you do CPR. No, it is not how you do CPR. If he's trying to get Jubilee to breathe. But I think when I saw that, and I saw that it was Don Heck, I thought, yeah, if it's the same Don Heck from the Silver Age, that gentleman was battling lung cancer during this time, and I believe this is one of his final issues. Like, he was drawing this while fighting cancer, and it was one of the last things he did before he passed away. And, you know, sometimes when artists get older, they try to, especially in the 90s, try to match that 90s style. We saw Herb Trampe do the same thing through the pages of, what was it, the Avengers West Coast, and some Wolverine, and the Guardians of the Galaxy, the Jim Valentino era, or I guess Guardians 3000. So I hate when things like that get taken out of context, because he's a good artist. I mean, we've seen him in the pages of the Silver Age. And honestly, one of the issues in here is actually drawn by Don Heck, but it's inked by Mike Esposito, who also is no stranger to superhero comics and drew a lot of Silver Age stuff with Kurt Swan, for example. So both of them did work at DC and Marvel. Now, I think Don was a little bit different, though, because Don, I don't think, really much like Big John Buscema, didn't really like superheroes. He just drew them because he needed a check. But he was still a legendary artist. So it's kind of sad to see people make fun of that because it's taken out of context. They don't know the body of work he's had behind. The same thing happened to Paul Gulacci's artwork in the pages of Catwoman. And yes, I agree. It's not the greatest, of course, and it's easy to make fun of artists, but those artists are legends in the field. So, again, sorry, I didn't mean to preach about that, but that kind of stuff really aggravates me. Now, we have Ben Herrera come back and be the artist for The Adventures of the X-Men. So it was a new ongoing series where they revamped the line and they made it a 99-cent comic book. I remember when 99-cent comics were coming out. I believe the Avengers had a series like that. Spider-Man had a 99-cent adventure. The paper stuck in there was this new sprint paper, so it wasn't the best, while the X-Men were getting the deluxe treatment for twice the price, the ongoing series. But Ralph Macchio also comes back to write the stories, again set in the world of the X-Men animated series. Now, Ben Herrera is still drawing comics. Like, I always thought he came in at that time when Joe Mad was blowing up, Humberto Ramos was blowing up, Mike Wieringo was blowing up. So, of course, he tried to mimic that style with a little bit of still Jim Lee's flair in there. But definitely has a cartoony feel, more so than Don Heck did. And I believe this one actually is Mike Miller, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, Mike Miller. Dan Panosian inking this. Cyclops. Is that the Nagari? With the Akira-looking bike. So in here you're going to see the return of the Sentinels, the return of Magneto, the return of Apocalypse, Mystique, the Morlocks, even the Living Tribunal makes an appearance through here. So if you're a fan of that, that's a cool cover actually. It's cartoony, but I don't know, it works for me. Now sadly the series was canceled after issue 12, 99 cents or not, you still had to meet sales. But this collects the entirety of that series. I don't think there's a big demand for this to be an oversized format. I don't know, this could sell out, and Marvel could be like, oh my gosh, we need to put this and the stories in here together and make one slim omnibus. And by the way, if you've not read this, this is awesome. This is also set in that animated era of X-Men, but more like the Jim Lee, Chris Claremont era of X-Men. But it's the House and Powers of X stories. So X of Swords, Inferno, all of that is in here with that 90s X-Men. Oh, it's so awesome if you've not read this. Now, the interesting thing is I don't think they had enough material to fill this particular volume up. So what they did was add a couple of stories from the Spider-Man magazine. And you have Iron Man here. And I believe there is a Hulk story, or no, Fantastic Four magazine back here. And this is cool. This kind of gives you the episode guide. I wish they had actually put that at the beginning. But then again, that would spoil things. You have a pinup right here. That's J.H. Williams. That's nice. Original artwork. Original pages. And the trade paperback. So apparently they did a trade paperback of this. Not sure when. The book has 448 pages. Retails for $39.99. And that, as they say, is that. If you're interested in purchasing any of these books, don't forget to check out our sponsor, cheapgraphicnovels.com, your online home for graphic novels and collected editions up to 50% off cover price. They have excellent shipping and prompt and helpful service. Check out their bargain deals for up to 90% off cover price. And don't forget that CGN also takes pre-orders. That way you don't miss out on the hottest releases. And they are currently running a special promotion for you Minties. If you're a first-time customer, after receiving your order confirmation email, reply back to that email and let them know Near Mint Condition sent you their way. They will then apply a free shipping promotional credit to your next order in the US. Cheap Graphic Novels, your source for the hottest books with the kind of deep discount, quality shipping, and customer service that will keep you coming back for more. And that was the content and page count of each of these books. Let me know in the comments down below which ones you're getting, which ones you've been wondering about, what you're hoping will come out in some kind of omnibus or oversized hardcover format. Me, myself, I'm hoping that we get Eternals collected in some kind of big format. It is such a good book. And if you have any questions, leave your questions down below. Don't forget to check out our other videos. We have a huge backlog of videos if you enjoy videos like this. Everyone stay healthy and safe out there. Much love.